Happy International Women's Day. My name is Sharon Nguesso, and I work with DOT to build digital communities of young people who are daring social innovators. I have the honor today of hosting a conversation with 5 DOT country directors who will be discussing the challenges, opportunities, and realities that young women in rural areas face in Rwanda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Lebanon. We'll be discussing the ways in which young women in rural areas are social innovators with high potential, they're change makers, and they're leaders who are creating opportunities for themselves and changing their communities one day at a time. And today we have with us on our panel, Violet Womatara, DOT Rwanda Country Director, Elgar Dawson, DOT Tanzania Country Director, Fikre Zute, DOT Ethiopia Country Director, Esther Gafiki, DOT Kenya Country Director, and Mariam Batar Karam, Director of Operations in the Middle East and North Africa. Welcome. So, just to set the scene about the power and potential of young women in rural areas, I'll invite each of our panelists to give us a snapshot of a young woman in a rural area who's really making an impact in her community. And maybe Violet, you can kick us off.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sharon. There are many young women in the rural areas who are creating numerous opportunities and transforming their communities as leaders, innovators, and social entrepreneurs. What comes to mind in Rwanda is Mutoni Uwase, and she's 25 years old. She resides in a location that was once hit hard by drought. People in her community began to move away, migrating to other communities, crossing borders, because there wasn't enough food left in their community. And she became very invested in the problem because she didn't want her community to suffer, but also she didn't want her community to disappear. So what she did is that she looked at different solutions, researching different tools, different crops that would work in her small plot of land. And she solved it. She was able to come up with various farming techniques that would work in her community during the long droughts. So what she did is she created a school for the farmers, where she blended the traditional and the digital farming techniques, providing them with the knowledge and the skills that they needed to be able to save their farms during those drought seasons. In addition, she was able to connect them to apps, additional resources, providing them digital skills that would continue to help them in additional research and also learning. And the most exciting thing is that the people who had left her village as climate refugees are now returning because of this great opportunity that Ange has created in her community. Thank you.
Today I'm going to talk about Given Silaya. She is among many of our young social innovators. And Given was born and raised in a rural village, whereby she was seeing the dwindling number of young girls from her class when she started grade 1 up to grade 7. Most of the reason being early pregnancies, but also young girls not becoming comfortable when they reach puberty and they don't have enough sanitary towels. So using the combination of training that we're providing to them, Gilda came up with a product called Maisha Product. And with Maisha Product, it's a package that is meant to support young girls in the school when they reach puberty with sanitary towels, as well as packages with sexual and reproductive health education, so that they become more aware about the biological change in their bodies, but also being able to go to school and happy and with dignity. So the Maisha package also caters for other young girls who have finished primary school. They are out of school girls. And with this, there is more education in terms of how they could prevent themselves with sexual transmitted disease, but also family planning. But this is for older girls. So her product now is available for rural young girls so that they could feel going to school comfortable, but also with dignity. And this will really help the girls to stick in school and finish their primary education and get opportunities for further education.
Well, when we talk about women impacting the rural community, I think the most important change that has taken place in the past decade or so is that the girls' education, increased number of girls are, joining and staying in school, which is very, very important. As a result, we see increased number of women graduating from colleges, universities, and vocational training institutes. Now we have more women agricultural experts, social workers, health officers, teachers, even supervisors and managers of construction sites. So these are important milestones when it comes to talking about women empowerment and gender equality. As a result of this significant change in the community, now women are engaging in more innovative ways to not only transform their lives, but also transform how the community is living and working in those areas. For instance, now women are using mobile technology and group texting to tackle violence against women, early marriage, and other harmful traditional practices. We see that women, through micro franchising, bringing essential goods and services to the community and changing the interaction between urban and rural communities. They are now setting up social enterprises to manage community resources such as water and community forests in a way that is more sustainable and in a way that environmentally conscious. So what DOT is doing or intending to do now is how to facilitate these women to engage more creatively and innovatively, to unfold their potential for creativity and for social innovation, so that they can those rural women who are educated in the nearby urban centers are coming back to the community and be part of the solution seekers, part of the change, the changing environment, and become change agents. So we engage these educated girls through training, skill development, networking, and accessing digital technology, and so that they're creating a platform of sharing experience and knowledge and bringing knowledge from other parts of the world to their community to actively engage in economic activity as well as in transforming their community for a better world. That is what we are trying to do, and that's what we are trying to expand.
Well, I'll start with a quote that says, "If you give a man fish, he'll eat for a day, but if you teach him how to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime." And twist that a bit and say, if you teach a woman how to fish, then she'll feed not only her family, but her community as well. And one of the stories I want to share is of a lady called Jane Baker, who is in Kisauni, Mombasa. And this is a young lady who went through our startup program. And she had started a small business where she was training women on some small vocational skills. And what happened is she realized she was not making enough money in this with this business. And what she did is go back and raise funds because she saw the need in her community. This is a community where most women drop out after class 8, which I think is about grade 7 here, so about 13, 14. And after they get that level of education, they drop out. There's no money to take them to secondary school. There's no, I mean, men will be educated most probably, but a woman won't. So how do we impact these young girls and ensure they have a way to earn a living? Because what happens when they dropped out of school? They get married. And what she did is set up an organization that gives them vocational and life skills. So they're taught basic skills, how to do tie and dye, how to do some soap making, how to very basic work skills, how to have cold pressed coconut oil. And these are things that they can sell in their communities and earn some revenue, because coconut is something that's widely used in Mombasa. And from that, she realized some of her students were dropping out because they didn't have a place to stay. So there's the cost of transport to come for the classes. The program is 1 year long that she was offering. So how did she tackle that? She fundraised, and the ladies, the young girls, stay in the college during the duration of the study. So one, they feel protected because then they don't have to move. Two, they're not worried about the situation at home. They're now able to focus on their school, on their schoolwork. And from 2014, she's trained over 600 young girls. And these are some of the success stories that Dot comes up with. How do you empower? It's beyond just teaching one person to do one thing. It's helping them come up with creative solutions for their communities. And it's very powerful because in the rural areas, most of them are dejected. Most of them feel it's either I get married because I don't have anything else to do, or I just stay home with my parents and I have to take care of my parents. So having them get skills that will help them earn an income, having them come up with skills that will help them solve community issues. We see a lot of self-esteem and pride that comes up. And for us, that is a very big thing for the work we're doing.
So thank you, Esther. You helped me pave the way for my input. So in Lebanon, DOT creates opportunity. So as per our slogan, create your opportunity. The way we do this, especially with rural women, they have very limited access to livelihood opportunities, educational opportunities. Infrastructure is not there to support them in terms of moving from one location to the other. And I'm going to talk about, shed the light on Nisreen, one of the girls with influence, and there was a triple win effect there because she also had the opportunity to impact others. She joined the UNICEF Innovation Labs program, and she participated in one of the programs that we offer social entrepreneurship and digital skills. She learned a lot, she gained lots of skills, but for the short term, these skills gave her the opportunity to get a seasonal summer job in one of the rural guest houses as a cashier. So she practically used automatically these skills to bring in revenue. But at the same time, she's a dropout, early marriage, and she never joined any postgraduate university or vocational training opportunities. So she decided to join a vocational training center to be specialized in accounting. And then while she was doing there, she realized that she has very limited transportation opportunities. And so many of the girls and women in her community might also want to access educational opportunities, but there's a hindrance of transportation security cost. So she learned that the Innovation Lab is offering a mobile application development course. So she came up with the rural Uber for girls. So she teamed up with girls in her communities. She joined the course, which is a 6 weeks course, and she said, I'm going to start a social enterprise. I don't drive, but I'm going to bring on board a friend who drives, who has a car. And we're going to set up this Uber for the town, but especially for girls, and brand it for girls for security protection reasons. So from various skill sets, she was able to bring in livelihood to her, access education opportunities, impact other women, come up with a solution relevant to girls and women in rural contexts, and at the same time, impact the bigger community. And what Dot did is we just had her, we created the opportunity to her, and then she made the whole thing by herself. The intention was there. She wanted to invest in her capacities, in her skills, and she was creative enough to enhance her livelihood and others as well.
Wow, what a fantastic way to kick off some incredible women. So Esther, Kenya's youth population has really been growing over the last few years, and a lot of those young people work and live outside of urban areas. How are you seeing women in rural areas transforming their own communities as that population is growing?
Well, one of the things with dot programming, like I'd spoken to before, is there's a lot of self-confidence that is built. So now they feel empowered, and that with that empowerment comes a voice. With that voice, they've created these opportunities, and it's one of the things that's very powerful is having a means to provide for yourself and for your family. So when you've empowered a girl or a woman to provide for her family, to be able to provide a source of income, a source of revenue for her family, she has the courage to stand, she has the courage to speak. So we're also seeing a few more women coming up and wanting to participate in public policy. They want to talk, they want to see whether they can stand for some political position. And by growing that community from within, that you're saying, yes, we can grow leaders from here, we can grow businesses from here, then it means eventually, well, now it's a dream, but eventually then we can mitigate rural urban migration. We can say, my community is strong enough. I want to build my community. I don't need to move to an urban area to look for income. And that's the power of dot, that we come right where you are in your community. We give you the skills to create your own opportunity, and then from there, the world is your plate.
Yeah, thank you so much. So the topic of innovation is very fascinating because the dot, we see it, shape in different forms from region to region, from young person to young person. And Fikre, I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about the ways that young women in Ethiopia are creating opportunities for themselves.
Yeah, just to follow up what Esther said, when population grows, is one of the major impact that's happening, particularly in Africa, is unemployment and underemployment. And particularly in the rural areas, we see a huge number of youths where they are not either employed or they are underemployed. That means they are not their labor fully utilized. So women are creating employment by engaging in various activities. Like for instance, food processing is one of the areas where they are now engaged by cutting intermediaries. So that there are local foods where the urban center needs, but the rural areas are known for just selling in a very cheap price the raw materials. But now they are processing that, they're adding value, and by adding value, they are creating employment in their community. They are also, engaging in creating access to relevant education. Education like in nutrition, education like maternal and child care, in reproductive health. Those are the kind of things that women are now engaged in creating employment, as well as in creating environmental and other awarenesses that helps them, not only them, but also the community as a whole. And that is an important milestone. They engage in farming, poultry farming, dairy, and meat farming, which is very important when it comes to adding value and increasing productivity in the rural community, and at the same time increasing employment opportunity for the young. So women are actively working these days in many fronts, particularly narrowing the gap between rural and urban centers.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. And Marianne, I'll throw it back to you, and we'll let everyone know that you work a lot with young refugee rural women in Lebanon. What unique opportunities are you seeing these refugee women in rural areas leveraging so that they can become change makers and leaders in those spaces that they exist?
So first of all, I'll introduce a bit the number of refugees Lebanon is hosting. So since 2011, there is 1.5 million Syrian refugees living in Lebanon. 53% of them are women, and 30% of the total population is living in rural areas. So you have around 500,000 refugees living in rural communities. Most of them are women. And when we say women, we're talking about 15 and above. So you have a major resource, economical resource that is unspent or unleveraged, that would eventually either contribute to the Lebanese economy or to they can contribute to international economies because of globalization. So what we're doing, we're trying to create opportunities for rural women by, of course, pushing them to be engaged in our social entrepreneurship and digital skills. But at the same time, how can we bring in projects, revenue to them while they are working from home, working in their communities from community centers? So we've spun off a startup for DOT called Bot. And it's creating digital freelance opportunities remotely. So having these women participate in our trainings, they can eventually go through the freelance opportunity platform. We bring in the projects to them by connecting to the private sector, and they do the digital work. Example, data management, web development, app development, etc. So, and this creates a lot of opportunities for them because eventually when they go back to their countries or they leave Lebanon, they have a skill set, they've contributed to the digital economy, and they can eventually build on it, leverage these resources to become independent financially. So I'll give you an example of Martina. She's been in Lebanon for 5 years. Because of her refugee status, she couldn't join postgraduate studies in Lebanon because you can't access postgraduate studies if you're not Lebanese in public universities. So Martina joined one of our Girls in STEM initiatives. And since then, she has been participating in the Vault, actively contributing to startups, supporting them with web development, data management, data entry, physically and remotely from her communities. And she was able to bring in revenue to her family and self-esteem. So there's also an impact on not just livelihood impact, but also on, yes, I can do it. Yes, I can build my capacities. I have self-esteem. People in the community accept me. I've built a network. And this is very important for refugees, to feel that they're not alone, to feel that someone is investing in them, and to grow a certain network.
Can I chip in? That's a strong refugee perspective, but in the rural community, one of the a very fascinating experience that we were able to generate and create so much fascination and interest is that the fact that bringing those graduates from the rural community, that means usually when they graduate, the aspiration is to stay in the urban centers and to look for other employment. But the fact that we were able to create an environment for these young graduates to see challenges and problems which they are trying to run away from into opportunities, into something that can be converted into investment, into businesses. That was a very fascinating experience, and these graduates are developing apps, for instance, for access to their business information in their mobile phone, because these days many women use mobile phones. The figure says, for instance, in Ethiopia, mobile subscribers are about 68 million. It's huge. So that means there is a great opportunity to educate women, to empower women through this mobile technology. So the whole environment that we were able to generate in a small scale, which we intended to scale it up, is that looking problems, challenges in a different perspective, looking them as an opportunity rather than as challenge. So that was a huge change in perspective that has got a potential to create movement, to create major change in the community, in which women will be able to change those patriarchal perceptions and make a difference, in decision making and resource allocation in that areas, in interacting and engaging with government offices and so forth. So that was a very fascinating experience that we started at small scale, which we hope to expand it further.
Yeah. In addition to what Marian and Fikri mentioned, one of the key values for DOT is that of local ownership. And local ownership, what has been very exciting, has been the whole notion whereby DOT goes into the communities, recruits the young girls and the youth from those locations, they train them, they empower them to be role models, and they empower them to be able to create opportunities. And it has a very huge ripple effect in terms of the community starting to see the young women in their own leadership role. And it has also reduced this whole role to urban migration. Very exciting.
And that's truly fascinating. So it looks like from Lebanon to Ethiopia to Rwanda, young women in rural areas are seeing the value in remaining in their rural areas and creating their opportunities. So I'll shift gears a bit, and Violette, I'd love to talk about the ways that in Rwanda, young women in rural areas have been leading this move to train rural areas and rural communities with technology and skills development. What kinds of skills do young women in rural areas need to fully take advantage of technology and leverage it for empowerment?
When we talk about skills, we have broad skills that we offer. But first of all, very important, we offer them in a blended approach. We have the online, the face-to-face, because we have to find the girls where they are. And also we have peer-to-peer model. We have a very unique model whereby we have these young leaders, these young women who are the ones who are leading this facilitation, this transfer of skills. When you're talking about skills, we all know that we have these God-given abilities, regardless of our geographical location or economic status. So what we start in terms of skills is looking at empowerment, where we help these young girls discover their passion and their personal strength. And it's very exciting, and you see they get very excited when they discover I have this passion and I can actually use it to do something else. And then we look at the digital literacy, and the goal here is to train them to efficiently use the tools that they have at their disposal. Very important, we look at the skills, looking at communication and collaboration. Looking at what are the efficient ways for these young girls to collaborate and to communicate. How do they articulate their vision? How do they have a voice and call for action? And the way we do this is we look at how do they interact with these technologies to help them have this voice, and how do they share knowledge, content, and collaborate through the different digital responses. Very important, we look at the skills in the area of critical thinking and problem solving. And here we introduce them to what we call human-centered designs, where they're able to identify a challenge, a need in their communities, and then they're able to come up with a solution. And here we go further and look at what are some of the technological responses to those needs. And then very important, we look at bringing in the whole notion of creativity and innovation, and looking how can we use technology innovatively to respond to those challenges. The other things we do is online security and safety. As we know, the young girls, they need to feel safe. And once these online securities and safeties are put in place, then these women, these young girls are able to confidently participate and interact with their peers in whatever module. Of course, in partnership with other partners like the K-Lab, the Knowledge Hubs, the Girls in ICT and Tech Women. These women are also getting additional skills in the areas of coding. And I'll let my colleagues also mention other skills that we offer in that.
There are too many.
So I would like to talk about some of the skills that I've seen that they've brought really big changes in the way our young people are thinking about the challenges in their communities, as Fikri said. So human-centered design, I think it has been a very good tool that we have started to apply and training our young people to use and go back into their community to find what are the challenges. For quite a long time, we've been, most of the developing countries have been looking at donors, they've been looking at the government and everything. Mostly when there are no services or products available to their communities, everyone blames it into the government. But right now, with the human-centered design, young people are able to go back into their communities and see what are the challenges that are happening in their communities and how can they come up with a business solution to solve these challenges. In a way, they'll be able to get income for themselves, but also being a very good contributor into their own communities. So through human-centered design is now when they go and talk to the rural women in the villages and ask them what are the pains you're having in terms of accessing health, accessing several products, whether it's baby care products, or whether it's healthy products, or whether it's family planning products, and then they come up with a solution, a business solution, not a solution to give away as charity, no, but really to engage the rural women and rural people as valuable contributors in the value chain, whether they are suppliers or whether they are consumer of products. And by coming up with prices that they will support the business to grow, and at the same time give these women opportunity to afford and feel that dignity that they're able to provide for themselves, they are ready to provide for their families and the community at large. The other thing is the empathy map. We are teaching our young people to use empathy maps to really understand their communities really well and to really put their feet into the rural women's shoes and see what are the really problems that they're facing. And therefore, by understanding them, we believe that it's very easy to come up with products that they will appeal those women to really participate fully and to feel respected, that their voice have been heard.
Well, it's just to add on that is other areas that we are tools that is helping women is like the youth leadership program, in which we have got a community leadership component. That is where, for instance, the passion and the desire to make a difference comes in, because that process takes girls and women to a self-reflection process. What do I have? Am I capable of doing this? Can I make a difference? What kind of skill do I need to make a difference? How do I network with others to build on my capacity and to do whatever I want to do? So that is a very important, it's a basic level, but it's a very fundamental level, because for women and girls to engage more productively and actively with confidence is that to start to know yourself, to start to appreciate what you have as an asset within yourself, asset within your community, asset within your family, and asset by networking with others and learning from others. So those are the kind of processes that really making a difference in terms of bringing women, particularly rural women, to be active agents of change in their community. So from that perspective, DOT is bringing these skills, these competences, these networks, and partnership relationship also does, because we are not working alone. We are working with other partners who have got different skills and competencies to bring together and helping rural women to help themselves.
I'm going to talk about a nice initiative we're doing. It's tackling girls, not women. Girls aged 15, 16 years old, exposing girls living in rural communities, because the initiative goes to the community. We don't send the girls to the capital. So we come in with role models, women who has contributed to the STEM economy in Lebanon. They would go to these rural communities, talk about their journey, how challenging it was to contribute to the STEM industry, to study in the STEM industry, which is science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And we've run this initiative in a partnership with 4 different NGOs. So we're 5 NGOs focused on gender, women, technology. We bring in these role models to talk to 500, 600 girls coming from public, private schools in one day. And we bring in the startups people, and they give them the opportunity to be actively engaged in hands-on practical STEM workshops for the whole day. So the girl starts the journey listening to inspirational role models, women mainly, and then they go for 4 or 5 hours, work, come up with a product, come up with a car, work on renewable energy, develop an app, work on web development, robotics, etc. And then at the end of the day, you get to hear some testimonials from the girls. Refugee, Lebanese, Iraqi, Syrian refugee, rural communities, public, private schools, low, middle, high income communities, all together in one venue, in one day, listening how in this they were exposed to skills that they thought they wouldn't have or wouldn't even believe in. So it's very important to engage girls early on, because this adolescent age is a critical age for them. This is where they choose their path. This is where we would completely destroy stereotypes that the STEM industry is for men and not for girls. You can't contribute to the technology industry. You don't have the intellectual capacity, the emotional, physical capacities. So stereotyping and culture barrier is something that we need to fight, and we fight as DOT. So that we push girls to their new opportunities, discover new skills, and this could eventually impact their lives.
Yeah, in addition to what Mariam said, we have what we call a new initiative known as the Digital Ambassadors Program, where we are putting the youth at the center of the digital transformation. And we have more than 50% young girls who are going to be at the center of that program, whereby we hope to train millions of Rwandans in the area of digital transformation for the economic development. And these young women are going to be challenged to come up with solutions that tackle the challenges that they face, but also very important to come up with local relevant content for the young women. Also very exciting, adult, we don't only offer skills. So twice we've had what we call the youth conference, and last year we had what we call the Impactathon. And what we did here is we challenged the youth, we challenged these women to look at, through human-centered design, to look at what are some of the challenges they face, to prototype, to come up with product, and then we give them this exciting opportunity where they were able to connect at the youth and conference with other young youth, with other young women, where they were able to share, to learn, and to connect. It was very exciting.
So it seems like there's an ongoing theme for young rural women of confidence building, empowerment, tapping into opportunities, and also just causing this ripple effect when those 3 things are tapped into, which is really exciting to see this International Women's Day. So we'll go ahead and wrap up. I'd like to thank you, all 5 of you, for joining us this Women's Day to celebrate the strides that women are making globally, and also the ways that young rural women are really taking the helm and changing their communities and creating opportunities for themselves. And this conversation doesn't need to stop here. If you have any questions or comments, please add them to the comment section of this video and we can continue the discussion there. Happy International Women's Day.
Happy
Happy
International Women's Day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.